E squared.
Hey now.
Hey now, you guys are always the first on. I love that. What's going on? What's the wins?
Don't have much. Just made it another day.
Sweet. Made it through another day. Well, think about this. Even the things that went wrong can be viewed as a win. Because the first thing that happened to me when I got home was my cat brought me a dead bird inside the house. All right, so here's my win then. You guys are so shy. That's all right. So then I got into the what you would call my office, aka my wife's closet. And then my computer wouldn't receive power. The power strip quit. So then I had to plug that in, and then the dog was behind me. And then I had to reach back behind something else. And then I had to shut my computer down because it wasn't running right. And all this was happening right before the meeting. And the big win was I didn't care. It just was
That's good.
different. I was just indifferent to it because I knew that it was going to pop out the other side. And we've already created our culture and our family here. That's kind of cool too when you think about it, is that the culture and the family in M3 is really mellow and laid back. It's where we all come and we know that we're accepted. And so by creating that culture and sending that vibration out there, that I knew that that's how I'm received automatically. I didn't have to think about it. Now, when I first started facilitating this stuff, if you all can, I don't know if you can resonate with this or not, but you've tried to like put the notes down perfectly so you say everything perfectly and you have to have everything in a line, and you're a nervous wreck if it just one thing is not right. And it was a big win to recognize that I don't need anything to do this except for the desire to do it and the desire to be right here with you guys, sharing this awesome information.
I was on this webinar with this guy. I don't know if you know who John Azaroff is.
I do.
So I was watching one of his, and there's 1,000 people in this room, right? And everything is going wrong with this webinar.
That's
And
awesome.
I just sat back and watched John. I was like, man, this guy's amazing here. He's got 1,000 people wanting to hear what he wants to say, and they're having technical difficulties, and he's not losing his stuff. He's not cursing. He's not getting flustered. He's like, hey, all right, just hang back. We got technical problems. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Like you see, like you think that like success like that, it's going to look like something that's so perfect, but it's not. It's got stuff that's going on chaotic and everything. And the person is the way that they are because, that they've already been programmed. Hey, everything's okay. John Ashraf's pretty cool. He was one of the first people that resonated with me from The Secret.
Yes.
They always refer to him as the vision board guy because he's talking about his son, Keenan. And, he's kicking the box. He says, stop kicking the box. He says, what's in it, Daddy? And he pulls out his vision board. He hadn't looked at his vision board for a while. And then he realized that everything that he had said on that vision board when he had spent that time with it, all of it had happened for him in his life. It's pretty cool. How did you get hooked up with him, Eric?
Through The Secret and through Bob Proctor. And then I watched there's another gal that he was doing another thing with that was purely on online, where you had to go onto it was almost like a Zoom thing that you were watching presentation. But I signed up for some kind of mastermind thing, and I was like, oh, let's check it out. And it was the 5-day business breakthrough, and everything that he was telling me, you've already been telling me.
Isn't it interesting that the truth is just the truth, right?
Right. I'm like, oh, I already know this. Yes. I do need to work on that. I need to work on my self-image. and then we were talking about our avatar, like who am I trying to reach, and how do I, and how to message your marketing towards their feelings. What are they afraid of, and what do they want? What are they running towards, and what are they running from?
Yeah.
So everything in there was kind of like a refresher course for me. I was like, yeah, I already know that from Matt Morgan, though, but okay.
Cool, brother. I appreciate that, man. It's so true, because that's why Bob's stuff resonates so much, and why I became a Procter Gallagher consultant, is because he just puts the truth in the most ridiculously simple form. And then when you do see it in another way, like even if somebody's presenting it in a more complicated fashion, you're like, oh, that's what that is. You just get it.
You know what I like? What John Arzroff says. He calls the conscious. Well, there's the Frankenstein mind, and then there's the Einstein mind. So the Frankenstein mind's where we go back to our. It's kind of it's the reactionary to protect you, and our Einstein minds where we're thinking and where our creativity's at. And if you you spend all that time in the Frankenstein mind, then you can't be creative.
Right. And people use different labels for stuff, that way. We just use conscious, subconscious. That's what we're going to learn about tonight. So without further ado, that's what I'm going to talk about. Is I actually text this out to you guys tonight as your infinite mind. There's another one. You can see like chaos was happening a little bit for me, and I kind of spread it out to you. We did infinite mind last week. This is the Secret Genie. And I want you guys to imagine that you realize that 96% of all the wealth is held by 1% of the population. It's just a fact. And it's always been that way. And if you actually take it and you force it to be other than that, it'll go back to that in a short amount of time. And it's because it's a natural law. It's just the way things are. Very few people understand this stuff. It's what Jesus was talking about when he was talking about understanding your mind, and why so few people have actually got the real message of what Jesus was trying to share too. It's the way that it comes in. So the 1% have 96% of the wealth. That's just one thing. You can say 1% of the people are truly happy and joyful in their life and getting the things that they want in their life, and most of the world is out there struggling. And of the 1% that are actually getting what it is that they want, they can't tell you why it is that they do that. And that's why not everybody knows this stuff. Now, of that 1%, there's so few people that actually have this information. It's not taught in schools. How our minds work, how we think, what actually brings us what it is, that we have in our life, how we're actually controlling things, and who we are, what we really are. That type of stuff you can get out of school. You don't even know what it is. And the point of it is that Bob had this strong feeling inside. He needed to know what that was, because something big happened for him. He went from earning $4,000 a year back in 1961, and then somebody came along and said, hey, stuff isn't working the way that you're doing it. Why don't you try my way? Because this guy was successful. His name was Ray Stanford. But what he told him, he said, read this book, and it was Think and Grow Rich. And the reason Think and Grow Rich is such a powerful book is because Napoleon Hill studied the most successful people, 500 of the most successful people in the world, like a scientist. He just studied and dissected everything that they did, and then he broke it down. And that powerful information was there. And the reason he did that is because Andrew Carnegie told him to do it. He realized that our educational system wasn't providing that. People had degrees, doctorates, and they were some of the most unhappy people in the world. They weren't earning the money that they wanted to earn. They weren't having the relationships that they wanted to have. And they were in more of a state of chaos and loss. So, Bob really had this strong desire to figure out what happened to him after this guy came along. He said, read this book. And Bob starts reading this book every day. He reads the book, and his life changes. And in 1 year, in 1961, he goes from earning $4,000 a year. He jumps all the way up to $175,000. And then subsequent years, he immediately goes to $1 million, over $1 million a year. And he tried to get other people to do it. He gave them the book. He, tried to walk them through it. And the changes didn't happen for those people. And he couldn't figure it out. He just couldn't figure out why this stuff wasn't sticking. And that's the big thing with what's going on in the world, is that even the people that are being successful, They can't articulate it. They don't know why. And it took Bob 9.5 years to figure out what he had done. And this is the lesson. It's called the Secret Genie. This is how Bob had the light bulb go off for him and have him say, oh my gosh, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what I did. So now what you're learning, you're actually learning about what you're learning and how to transfer it to somebody else. This lesson will teach you how to see other people and how to understand what they're thinking and what they're doing in order to get the results that they're getting or why they're behaving the way that they're behaving. It's called the Secret Genie. Little refresher here. We're going to be looking at our results. And remember, you are not your results. Your results are just a reflection of the programming that's inside of you. So however you're programmed, you're acting from that way naturally. It's the way you feel. It's what you believe. 96 to 98% of your day, only 2 to 4% of what you're doing is actually a conscious thing. You're consciously choosing to think about something or take a different action. Only 2 to 4% of your day. The rest of the stuff is programmed in, and it shows up in our life as our results. We're conditioned to receive those results, and we're actually taking action to produce those results, and we're sending out a vibration that causes those results to come to us. So we look at those results indifferently because they're subject to change. They're not who you are. And I want you to remember that. Just do not judge yourself as you do this. Get really excited about what you see because we have the ability to change it now for anything that we want. That's the power of this lesson. One of the most powerful lessons in thinking into results. So we work with something called the magical graphic, and I want you to think of something. I want you to think of your mind and just think about what comes to, what do you see? What is your mind as far as you're concerned? Most people, if they really think about it, they think that it's our brain. But our brain is not our mind any more than our fingernail is, or our elbow, or our toe. Our brain is just an electronic switching station. It's an amazing thing. It has the ability to make, countless connections, and we can flash images. We can recall memories. We have the ability to actually project into the future and flash images in our mind that way. We can go back to the past. We have the most powerful brain that there is on the earth right now. But when you think of yourself having a thought, you have to ask yourself, what caused me to have that thought? If you think a part of your brain told your brain to have that thought, then you think, well, what told that part of your brain to have that thought? And then you just kind of fall down the rabbit hole and just have fun with it because you realize that no part of your brain is you. You are the thing that caused you to have that thought. That's what you truly are. And what you are is mind. Mind is an activity. It's never going to be seen. It's like what we would say our soul or our energy or all the different things that we talk about in this world, that who we really are. Something that moved into this body and it's going to move out of this body. But it's not able to be seen. But here's the thing. We're programmed to work in images. We're programmed to look at something and say, well, if I want that changed, or even if you're subconsciously doing it like, oh, I really don't want the thing, you're still creating the image of what you don't want. But we're programmed to think in images and the change in those images, and we apply a vibration to that, which actually causes it to change for us. But if we want to change us, we have to learn how to change our mind, and we don't have any cells of recognition for the mind. What does your mind look like? You, the thing we can't see, when it's working the way you want, or when it's working the way that you don't want. And if you do think that you are your brain, then what does your brain look like when it's working the way that you want? And what does your brain look like when it's working the way that you don't want? I would guess to say it looks the same. I've not seen my brain. But I think it would probably look the same if it was frustrated, sad, chaotic, angry versus happy, joy. I have no idea. If you want to change your front door to, hot pink or black, I mean, you immediately can see your door in that color and start thinking of the actions to take, to start thinking what this whole chain of things happen. But when we go to change our mind, we've got nothing. So enter what we call the magical graphic. This is the Secret Genie, and he's a funny guy. Like, just to look at him at first blush, like, what is this? Is a bobblehead guy. This was introduced to Bob by a guy named Leland Val Vanderwall. Val Vanderwall, say that. And Leland had got this from a doctor in San Antonio, Texas, who was in the healing arts, who actually realized it was all the way back in 1934. This guy was really ahead of his time, that he realized that what we were doing in the healing arts, as he called it, was that we were always treating symptoms and we were never getting to the root cause of what it was. And until we got the root cause, which is actually always the mind, till we got to the root cause of what it was, we were never going to truly be healing. So he created this magical graphic of what represents your mind. And this gives us the ability to see what we're thinking, what we're becoming emotionally involved with, and what it's causing us to take action and do. And now we can change that. We can really just start to look at this graphic and just see things flowing through it the way that you want or the way that you don't want. It's all we're creating here in thinking into results. And in M3 is awareness. So your world is a living expression of how you are using and have used your mind. Earl Nightingale said that. That's all that it is. You're a reflection of whatever you're thinking, but not consciously thinking. What you're subconsciously thinking, or what we really know the subconscious to be, is feeling. Anything in your life, you can just say that right there. You're going to have a feeling about that thing, even if that feeling is indifference. If you don't know anything about it, you're just going to dismiss yourself from it. But everything in your life is showing up based on a feeling that you're having about things. And that feeling is based on your mind. You've been programmed, you've received programming to feel about things. And it's the feeling of the things that actually has the profound impact for you and what is showing up, what your life is. It's your feeling. So Bob said this graphic illustration of the mind we refer to as the stick person is without question the most valuable idea I have gained in close to 50 years of intensive research into the workings of the mind. And he got that in the very beginning. The story goes, and Bob tells it, if you guys ever get a chance, if I ever share a paradigm shift with you, I say jump on it. I think it's like $147 to attend that. But Bob shares these stories, and he shares them in such a strong way. He said the moment he saw this graphic, he realized exactly what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. He was running a floor cleaning business, but he knew that it was something that he wanted to do, is to go out there in the world and share this information because it would change people's lives. And when we're coaching and in the coaching space, people ask that question like, well, why is it that you want to do what you want to do? And my response is that if you had the answer for people to get whatever it was that they wanted, to produce the results that they wanted in their life, how would you use it? You know, would you use it just to do, okay, I'm going to set up, one single thing for myself and then go out there and get the success that you want? Or would you naturally want to share it with those that you love, friends? And actually, it just starts to expand out further and further, because the more that the world knows the way that stuff works, the more that you see that the world's just a happier place. We're all meant for unique callings. And the better we're expressing those callings, the higher our vibration is, the more we're in a place of love, joy, and peace and happiness. And how great is it to think that if that were to be spreading on a big level? Because right now in the world, it kind of isn't. We've been through COVID, we've been through some challenging stuff. And a lot of that comes from the ignorance of how we use our mind. So why did this change Bob's life? Well, now he understood who he was, and he realized in order to change who he was and for other people to change who they are, they first must understand who they are. We just covered a little bit of that. You're not your brain. In order to change who you are, you have to first understand who you are. You're not your body. You moved into this body, you're going to move out of it. You're not your name. Your name is just a sound. You identify with it, but it's not who you are. There's plenty of other Matts out there in the world. But I'm the only unique expression of me and spirit and what my spirit is. It's unlike any other spirit that's ever been, and it's unlike any other spirit that ever will be. So we have to understand who we are. You don't ever hear anybody say, am hand, am head. We say, my hand, my body, my results. So who am I? Well, I'm the one that's running this show. It's so good that we get this down at the core, understanding. And I like to take it down really to what I just said is that you don't have to do anything in this world to be amazing. You already are a unique expression of spirit. And the greatest way that I can put that is that however you want to view what created all of this, at some point it decided that it needed you. So, what do you need to do out there into the world to be extraordinary already? You don't need to do anything. You do go out there in the world and you express higher and higher versions of your spirit. Let me say, not versions, expressions of your spirit, because your spirit is infinite and it's always seeking expression. You're always seeking greater expression into the world. And that's why we have desires. That's why we want to do something bigger. And when we get that thing, we want to do something bigger. It's naturally how we came out into the world. We didn't come into the world and go, you know what, I'm just going to lay here on my tummy. No, we said, I'm going to roll over. Our feeling was, I'm going to improve. And I see those around me. They're standing up. Well, once I stood up, I didn't want to just stand up. I wanted to walk. It was natural. I wanted to run. I wanted to climb the tree. The next thing you know, it goes and it goes. That doesn't need to stop. That's a natural state. Spirit is always seeking for fuller expression and expansion. And that's cool. We can go through school and we can learn very little about who and what that spirit is. We're taught memory in school. We're also taught to live through our senses, which we're going to get into just a little bit. We live on 3 planes of understanding. This is what Leland taught Bob. We're a spirit. You hear people say, I had a spiritual experience. You didn't. You are spirit and you're having a physical experience. This physical experience will pass at some point, but you are spirit and that will go on forever. That is a constant thing. Right now, we just happen to be having a physical experience in this body. You are spirit. You have an intellect. And we're the only ones that have this. Your dog doesn't have that. Your dog doesn't have the ability to project himself out into a higher state of life. You know, your dog thinks instinctually. His thoughts are already programmed into him. He's going to receive programming from you about what's good or what's bad. But he does not have the ability to say, you know what? I'd like to live in a double-decker dog house. You know what? I don't want to eat that dog food anymore. I think maybe I want to stick to bacon. It doesn't, it sounds silly to even say it. You're the only one that has the ability to choose what it is that you want to be. And therein becomes the big challenge for all of us. Your dog can't choose. Your dog just exists. I like this example. They talk about a zebra got attacked by a lion and his back half is really tore up and he's all, he could be in a state of like, oh my gosh, how did this happen to me? This is horrible. But the zebra never does that. In the evening time, once he survived or whatever happened, the zebra's just seen munching on grass with the rest of the zebras because the zebra doesn't have any concept of being anything other than a zebra. The zebra doesn't go, oh my gosh, I had the worst day. You wouldn't believe what I had. The zebra doesn't go, oh, feel bad for me because I got attacked by a lion. The zebra just maintains being a zebra. Our challenge with us is that we have the ability to choose whatever it is that we want. But with that comes the ability to judge things as good or bad. I want that. I don't want that. So we switch our channels and we switch our channels with our intellect because we don't understand what it is. So we're never fully just being something. We'll start to be something and then we start to skew it off to the side. See, no, it's not really what I think maybe I'll go over here. So we start attracting that thing. So we're never really the thing. It's like we say, well, it doesn't work. Well, it does work. It's just that we never hold our focus on it. We don't understand how to put our intention on it and make it part of every fiber of what we are. Because when you are that, as I said before, you become the acorn. The acorn knows nothing except for to be the oak tree. Whatever condition the acorn's in, it doesn't go, oh man, there's not enough water in this soil. It's still just working through that moment, becoming the oak tree and becoming the oak tree. And you're made up of the same stuff as the acorn. You've just been granted this super high intellect. So we switch. If you wouldn't switch and you would hold your vibration, there's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing that you can't become. You abide by, you follow the same laws as the acorn, the laws of the universe, as we call them here. And you act out through a physical body. Your physical body is something that takes action, and that action is what pushes up against the world and gets a reaction, and we call that your results. What we started this whole thing off by talking about, we view our results and we ask ourselves, is that what I like or I don't like? We have the ability to change that. So the mind's the greatest power in all of creation. We already covered this. I already jumped ahead of this. What is it? Our brain? No, we know it's not our brain, but how does the mind work? There it is, the magical graphic. And I want you guys to understand this because I don't know that I have this slide here, but the energy always flows from the top down. The energy comes through our conscious mind. That's where you and I live. That's where you and I communicate from. Our conscious mind is what's aware of the world through our senses. It's our thinking mind. Like I said, that's where we're conscious. That's where we live. And the energy is always coming from the top down. Now, what we get emotionally involved with is our subconscious. That's where our programming lives. And in our conscious mind, we think that we have the ability to multitask, a la Jennifer. You know, it's very, very common that that's much more a woman thing because women have so many things that they have to take care of. They really, really do. They've got a lot of important boxes that they've got to check, you know, whether it be take care of the kids, take care of the husband, take care of, whatever. Women are great providers that way. Women are great caretakers that way. And so they don't want to miss anything because if they do, they always feel like somebody else is going to get shortchanged for that. So it's so common that women are in a state of what would seem like multitasking, but they're not. They're just changing channels really quickly because that's all that our conscious mind can do. But when you say, well, how do I drive down the road then and put my makeup on and talk on the cell phone and change the radio channel and, take care of the kids in the back at the same time? That's when we get into the subconscious. The subconscious is here, right here now. And that's the programming that we have that lives inside of us. That's where our beliefs live. That's all that type of stuff. And that's that energy as that flows down into that area. That's how we're able to do that, all that type of stuff. And that's what we've got to actually learn how to program to make the things that we want happen in our life. So as energy flows down, comes through the conscious mind, goes through the subconscious mind, and then that causes the body to take action. The body is just an instrument of the mind. It does exactly what the mind tells it to do. So this image brings order. Now you have the ability to say, whoa, what am I feeling? Well, I know that's coming from my subconscious. What thoughts am I getting in harmony with, that's causing that? You can see it. Is that what I want? And now you have the ability to change that. This image brings order and it gives you a greater ability to gain an awareness and control over the thoughts that you think. Having the power to understand what those thoughts do now, how powerful they are. Do I want to get emotionally involved with this thing? Does it take me to an outcome that I want? Understand how those thoughts are affecting the actions you take. It's a repeatable image. I have one up on my wall here, and I would recommend that you do the same thing. Get the stick person. If you just go to Google and type in Bob Proctor stick person, you're going to find one and stick it up on your wall so that you think about it all the time. You see yourself as a stick person and you see everybody around you as a stick person. They're doing the same thing. We all operate with the same mind. Without the image, we have confusion, and naturally, your conscious mind does not like confusion. So we turn away from this confusion to areas that are more familiar to us. That is not the mind. And that's the one thing that we need to change and improve upon. We don't think about our mind and how to change our mind because it becomes a chaotic state, but this image now brings order to that. You can understand that. You don't like that chaos. And when we turn away from that chaos, we just go back to what we know. Jason's not on here tonight, and he said he might jump on a little bit later, but he talked about that. He said it's natural for me to receive chaos in my life. So because that's a natural state, when he lets go, when he just gets away from his trying to create peace and feeling what peace is like into his life, and that feels just too chaotic and he doesn't know how to do it, his natural state is he goes right back to chaos. What's the same thing for the results that you don't want in your life that keep showing up for you? It's a natural state for you. But now we have this image and we can say, I can change that. When you look at the stick person, a further inspection, you can see there's the conscious mind, subconscious, and body. But a really simplistic way to put it is that it's your thinking mind. Again, that's you. You can have any thought that it is that you want. And then there's your emotional mind, and that's your subconscious. We hit upon belief, and we're going to dive deeper into belief. Belief is what shows up in your life. Whatever you believe is showing up for you. Belief isn't words, though. Belief is feeling, and that's the emotional mind, what we call emotion, subconscious. Thinking, emotion, and then body you can think of as action, or you can think of M3, mind, move, action. Mind, move, manifest. Let me say that right. Mind, move, manifest. Further inspection, our senses are like antennae that stick out of the top of our head. See, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And we're taught to live through these senses. Bob says this when you get into thinking into results, you come into the full coaching. He says, in his first instances of this, he says the teacher's like, Bob, would you pay attention? Would you look at what's going on here? Stop looking out the window. It's very natural for us as kids to be in a state of imagining what we want. We're thinking about what we want. What do you want to be? I want to be a fireman. Well, I want to be a superhero. I want to go build a fort. And it's not until we get older that it starts to be people say, hey, pay attention to what's going on. See this, hear this. So we start to be programmed from a young age to stop using the higher faculty of imagination for what we want. And then what we start doing is paying attention to what's going on now. But that's just in our conscious mind. You have to understand that what our senses actually tell us is what's going on right now and maybe something about what's happened in the past, but they don't have to have any bearing over what happens in the future. We just had this conversation just a few minutes ago about report card syndrome. Is that the child comes home and maybe they didn't get a good grade on their report card. But then the child begins to identify with, I'm a C student or I'm a D student. Now that's when it becomes emotionalized. That's when it starts to get down into the subconscious. So if anything starts to show up for that child in the form of a student or an outstanding student, they immediately reject it, and they reject it naturally because they're being taught to live through their senses. That doesn't match up with what they know themselves to be. So they just reject it. But our senses don't need to have any, it doesn't matter what you've done in your past. None of that stuff matters. We're constantly disqualifying ourselves because of stuff like this. And we don't need to do that. You can achieve anything that it is that you want because you want it. That's enough. It's a desire that lives inside of you. Just the mere fact that it pops up in the form of a desire means it's already alive. It's already there. It already exists. We just have to learn how to draw on our higher faculties, how to use our mind to bring this thing out into the world, into physical expression. So, further inspection, your senses are only hooked up to your conscious mind, and they're only telling you what's going on right now and something about what's happened in the past. That's all. They have no bearing on your future. So, what is thinking then? Mental activity does not constitute thinking. Scrolling on Facebook does not constitute thinking. Thinking according to how you're already existing in your life, the results that you're getting, does not constitute thinking. That's habitual. That's natural. That's paradigm, and it's just having its way with you. Most of the time, mental activity is in harmony with the paradigm, and thus it's habitual and it's effortless. We think we're doing something, but why do we love to watch TV? Why do we love to watch a movie? Because we're giving that thing permission to take our mind on a ride. We don't have to think. The movie does the thinking for us. We have little moments where we're like, oh, cool. I wonder if this happens. I wonder if that happens. But the movie's going to decide what happens there. It's not our job to produce the outcome. Thinking, real thinking, is consciously choosing to build a thought and create an image deliberately in the form we desire. It can be really natural for us to just get into a state of worry, doubt, anxiety, and fear because it's been programmed into us. And it doesn't take work to do that. But it takes work to think outside of the box of who you are, to create an image of what you want. And you've never done that before. You've never experienced that before. And I like how the Bible said, with the faith of a mustard seed, I keep running that through my head. With the smallest success that you have, when you start to build an image for what you want, and a great way to do this is to project into the future a situation that can only happen if you were successful. And then you really get emotionally involved in that. You see, they call it a congratulatory conversation. Somebody's congratulating you, or you're talking about or having a conversation with somebody you care for, you love being around. That could only happen that if the thing that you wanted happened. Now you're building the image, and in the faith of a mustard seed, when you just get that small image, it's enough just to start right there and then begin to build on that image. Little by little, you begin to build it, and you begin to build it. And the more time you spend with that, the more you're programming yourself to receive it. The more you're programming yourself that becomes a habitual part of who you are. And then the more you begin to receive things like that in your life, the more you understand that this is how I'm programmed. This is what I get. You didn't come into this world saying your name. We say that over and over and over again. You became programmed for that. Well, you can program yourself in the very same way that you learn to say your name to get the results that you want. Money comes to me in increasing quantities through multiple sources on a continuous basis. Right, Eric? That's exactly it. Now, you might not have experienced that before, but the more you say that, and the more you see yourself saying to people, no, the money's always coming to me. It's always coming to me. The more you program yourself to receive that in your life. You don't need to know how, where, what it's coming from. You just need to understand that happens for you. And if you just look around, you know people like that. Mendonca's like that. Thinking in the beginning, creating the image that it is that you want can be some of the most challenging work that you've ever done. So give yourself grace. It's okay. But do spend time doing it. Don't let your paradigm take you on a ride, because if your paradigm takes you on a ride, you're always going to get more of the same stuff over and over and over. If you objectively view you or another person's behavior, you'll understand what's going on in their mind, because now you understand the stick person. Vibration is a natural law of the universe. Everything vibrates. Nothing rests. We literally live in an ocean of motion. Your body is a molecular structure in a high speed of vibration. So you understand that, and then you automatically start to understand the secondary law of vibration, which is the law of attraction. You are in harmony. If you think about musical notes, when they're in harmony with each other, they just mix. But if those musical notes get off just by a little bit, you can feel the fluctuation of what happens there. It's the same thing that's going on with you and what it is that you want. When you get out of vibrational harmony with that, it's not matching up with you. So it's not coming to you. You're not conditioning yourself to receive it because you're not having the thoughts and feelings for that. That's the whole idea. We're not what we think that we are when we say this hand, this body. It's not. It's all just energy vibrating in a particular way so that we experience that way. We experience it as the thing that we say that it is. What do we do with the secret genie? We got to take action. Start looking at your results. As we started this whole thing, begin by examining how you spend your days. Just recognize if a disappointing situation occurs, do you react or respond to that situation? Remember this, reaction and response, neither one is good or bad. What you want to do is get yourself programmed to react the way that you want, but you're going to first do that by learning to respond. So when you respond, you're taking pause. You're not doing the knee-jerk response. Like every time she says that, then I say that, and the whole thing just goes haywire, whether it's at the office or it's a family member or somebody. Take the time to stop and take pause and ask yourself, well, you know that it goes that way. That's your natural state of being. What can you do differently? What can you do that's in harmony with what you want? And that's a response. Now you're consciously taking control over your situation by using your intellectual mind to build something that you want. And then you just do that enough so that that becomes your reaction. In coaching, a lot of times we look at that and we go, oh, reaction is not good. And no, neither one is good or bad. You just want to get yourself to where you naturally react in a way that gets you the results that you want. Do you have difficulty staying focused on a project? Multitasking and the need to multitask and switch channels and not stay focused on something comes from programming. And a lot of that programming is that I'm going to miss something. We've been programmed shamefully. If you've shown up in class or you've not been prepared for something, you're going to miss something. It's just got in there before, and we felt the red in our face and upset stomach when somebody calls you out on it. And all of a sudden, this programming gets built into us as, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss something, got to pay attention. I'm going to miss something, got to pay attention. And it's actually really the yin and yang of it all because that person winds up switching channels so much. They do exactly what their programming says. Miss something, miss something. The subconscious doesn't care if you say, I don't want that. All it's hearing is miss something, miss something. So you wind up switching channels. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there, and you don't get what's right in front of you. A lot of times it's the answer that you really need. Do you have an organized continuing education program? I'm going to hit on this one more time. This stuff is not taught in school. You have to take charge of understanding you. You have to take charge of that. You have to take time to teach yourself about who you are and what your mind really is and how it works so that you understand yourself better. The only place that you're probably getting this right now is through M3, as Eric said. Matt Morgan talks about that. You know when you hear it from certain teachers out there, if it's Bob Proctor or John Asseroff, as we said, Neville Goddard, he was a great one. You know what that truth is, and you have to constantly put that truth inside of you. Because why would you put your time into thinking about something that you didn't want if you were coming from programming, which most of us have got, which says, hey, get your mind out of the clouds, get back down here to do the work, this thing, just be here and this live from your senses, pay attention to what's going on to just right here. You wouldn't. You have to have a strong belief that this is the way that it actually works. This is the way that all the success has ever been created. Steve Jobs says the dots never line up when you're looking forward. You have to have the faith that they're going to line up. The only way that the dots ever line up is looking back on something big that you've done. Oh gosh, that was a genius step, and there was a good step, and there was because they were being led by an image. They were being led by a feeling. They were receiving those things, receiving those intuitive actions and responses, how to take their next action so that they could be successful. Pay attention to what your greatest strengths and your greatest weaknesses are. Do you plan to eliminate your weaknesses? And if so, which ones? Consciously decide and understand you don't need to eliminate all your weaknesses. You can attract people to you that actually are strong where you're weak. We're not going to go out there in the world and do everything by our own hand. That's a very fearful state. We have the ability to attract any person that we need into our life also. choose the weaknesses that you want to eliminate based on what you truly want, what you feel in your heart. List out 6 habits that you see yourself doing aren't giving you what you want and that you want to change. Just list them out so that you can become aware of them. What's a belief you have difficulty with that you would like to strengthen? I know this by coaching individually, with some people on here, that there are beliefs that way that you see that it's just a real core belief of, um, I do a great job sharing this information because I'm passionate about it. I didn't always believe that. I do a great job in my presentation because I really care about helping people and really showing them the things that they can achieve in their life. We didn't even know, right, Eric, that those things are actually out there for us. And as those things are being shown to us, I'm just so passionate about it. And I love sharing this with people and making their lives just amazing just by some of the information that I love and I share with them. Well, that's a belief that has to be programmed into you. Other beliefs come along and say, oh, our family's never done that before. We can't do that. We're not allowed to. Oh, you just start to learn to shut that stuff out and fall in love with the other belief. This is a cool perspective thing, one of our higher faculties that we're going to get into next week. But think of a very close friend or associate. What behavioral patterns do they have that you could consider annoying? You see how you view that stuff. And then flip it on its head and say, well, if that person did this exercise about me, what would they say? That's a cool perspective. Perspective it gives us the ability to look from a different point of view. And another cool way that you can use perspective that comes to mind is that when you think of somebody that you really, really care for, and they were coming up to you and they were sharing this great big idea of what it was that they wanted to do, their passion had come out. And you see yourself sharing with that person, hey, the reasons, like what would you say to them about going after their dream? And the reasons that you would give them because you just know that they can do it and you believe in them to go do it. And then you take that information and you turn around and you say it to yourself. Believing in the other person sometimes can be so easy because we have the ability, we have that, it's a strange phenomenon is what Bob called it, how we see how another person can do something and then we say, well, I can't do that. But that's not true because that's a belief. Anything that you want to create in the form of a behavior that you see another person doing, that person is working with the same faculties you are. When you start to understand that, you start to realize, and if you think about somebody successful like Asaroff, you just mentioned him, what advice would he give you about going after your dream? What advice would he tell you about what he had to go through to achieve what he'd tell you you're working with the same exact thing. And all we have to do is change that feeling, that gut feeling about what you feel about you and what you're doing. So what daily actions do you have that are habitual that ensure that you're moving toward your goal? Remember, the goal is what makes this stuff significant. It's cool information. It's truth. It resonates. It causes you to go like, whoa, yes. Oh, why haven't I ever thought of that before? But this information becomes significant for you when you set your goal. When you go to m3coaching.me, which I'll send you the recording to this stuff, right in the bottom of the recordings of these now, I did a recording of me on Zoom and how to set your goal and why it's so important that you set your goal as you walk through this. Because M3 coaching, these 12 weeks going through these lessons becomes so profound for you at that point. It really matters. It doesn't really, it doesn't pay for you. I mean, it's, like I said, it's cool, but it doesn't pay for you to learn from this stuff in the abstract. You might as well be learning about it while you're going after something that you really, really want. It's all the same. At the end, you're going to wind up with something that you really, really want, though. Rules for being human. That's what I'm going to share with you. That's the article this week. It's a really short one, and it's awesome. It really is about giving yourself grace and understanding kind of what we're doing, and nobody knows who wrote this article. It's an anonymous thing. It's been around for a while. I encourage you guys to read through it, and it just gives you grace for being who you are. It makes you appreciate the experience of what we're going through, good, bad, indifferent, whatever you want to call it. It's all just an experience, and it's here. It's actually here when you view it from that point of view. It's here to make you better. It's here to draw more of that spirit of you out into the world. Next week, we're going to talk about our higher faculties. The trick to staying in charge no matter the circumstances. If you've ever heard anybody tell you with emotion that they wanted to go out and do something in their life and they faced some kind of challenge that it wasn't possible, I'm here to tell you that anything is possible. Anything can be overcome. And if you don't believe me, as I say, step out into your yard and stare up at the sky. You're going to see an airplane fly by at some point. And if you think that those guys didn't face challenges in order to figure out how to fly that plane when the whole world told them that they couldn't do that, and then about 60 years later, less than 60 years later, it was like 50, I don't know, numbers, not my thing. We'll call it 60. We were already on the moon. We figured out how to get to the moon. And if looking out there into space doesn't do it, reach down into your pocket and grab that cell phone. And if I told you about that cell phone 30 years ago, you would have thought I was off my rocker. But that cell phone now can take a picture right here, and I can send it to my friend Karen Brooks in Australia, and she's going to get it right away. If you think that there weren't challenges to overcome in creating that stuff, think again. But every one of those challenges is able to be overcome. And that's what we're going to be talking about next week. How to get outside of yourself and use your higher faculties to create solutions to keep you moving forward to what you want. You've got to have what you want defined out. But once you've got that defined out, we know how to keep those solutions flowing just so you can keep moving forward. Because you would agree, if you keep moving forward, you're always going to get there. M3, anybody? Questions, takeaways? You guys are awesome.
No, just another good M3.
Awesome, buddy. I see a hand waving. I think that's, is that Amy?
It's me on the Golden Gate Bridge.
There you are on the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm so happy to see you. I love it.
Thank you.
The sun stays the same right there. Did you notice that no clouds moved? Like my office, it's static. The clouds stay the same.
I did. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. That was good.
Thank you, Amy. Do you like that? Do you like the stick person? I know that I draw him out for you on occasion.
Yeah, I do like the sick person.
Isn't he awesome?
Yes.
It really gives perspective to what you're doing. And Eric, too. I mean, I know it gives perspective to like, holy crap, like that's why. That's why we're doing what it is that we're doing. And now we have the ability to change it.
Yes. Awesome.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
See you
Matt.
next week.
Bye, Jen.